Welcome to Danger Goggles. I'm Jacob, and this is our new project. It's a barn find Fiat 600D. We're going to take it and redo all the brakes in it. We're going to check out the engine. It turns over by hand, but no one's attempted to start it in a long time. We're going to start by taking the grease cap off and taking the nut off and trying to pull the drum off. The other side was seized to the brake shoes. This side is probably seized as well because none of the wheels would turn when we had it towed. So I'll take this off, take the nut off, and see if it'll come loose. What we're gonna do, it's seized on the brake shoes. I'm gonna remove these two bolts in the back to get the backing plate off and just take everything off as a unit. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this flex line because it's just crumbling. So we'll cut that. We've got replacements, so I'm not worried about that. That had to be replaced anyway. Alright, we got this off. We'll see if we can separate the two halves. This thing is pretty disgusting, but let's see if we can get it apart. That's a freaky looking dude. I didn't even see him in there. You gotta go find a new home. You're getting evicted. Okay, it took a minute, but we got it mostly separated. Let's go ahead and see what's inside. Well, we broke all of our springs, but we do have some replacements. These actually look different sizes. They are different sizes. Somebody's been in here before. We'll go ahead and get this cleaned up. This one's not as bad as the passenger side was. We'll get that cleaned up. We've got a new wheel cylinder. We'll get this cleaned up and painted, and we'll get it all back together. Okay, I got everything cleaned up now. Got it painted. We're gonna go ahead and start putting it all back on. Start with the backing plate. We got the backing plate installed. Now we'll go with the wheel cylinder. Got these brand new. I got most of my parts from MrFiat.com. Some parts from RockAuto.com. So I'm getting the brake shoes on, and I see how these cams are supposed to work. This doesn't have a regular adjustment screw down here to set the load on the brake shoes, but it's got these cams. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera. There's a little eccentric cam here. You turn it on the back side and it will push the brake shoe out until it contacts your drum. So that's how you set the, I guess, your preload backlash on the brake shoes. For these, I don't have much left of the Fiat springs. There's the original keeper spring and cap, and that holds the brake shoe on. spring there, a cap, and then you put your pin through the backside. I don't have good ones of these to go all the way around, so what I've done is I've taken a 1954 Chevy 1-ton rear drum brake spring, almost the same part. I'm going to use these. I've modified these. These are a little springier, but I've cut a coil and a half off, and it will collapse down to about the same size as this and about the same spring tension. So I'm going to use these instead of the original Fiat parts because that is all I have. In theory, that should work. We'll find out later. Okay, I've got the one spring modified. Now I'm going to cut the other one about right here, 1.5 coils down. And just like that, we have a brand new Fiat part out of our 54 1-ton Chevy pickup. Can't get the piece separate. There we go. There we go. Took a minute, I got it. So, next we've got to take our return springs, stretch them all the way across there. With doing this, we'll find out whether or not our shoe keepers are actually going to work. I'm going to turn this cam to give myself a little more room for these brake shoes to come together. Oh, got it. I think that's going to work. I'm going to test fit the drum, and then I'll have to press a bearing into the drum, pack the bearings, so we can get the drum on and assembled. I have the original brake drum here. I've sprayed it down with some rust reformer after sandblasting it, and I turned the inside here for a new fresh surface for the shoes to bite on. I'm just going to slide it on, make sure it fits. I still have to install the bearing race for the outer wheel bearing, pack the bearings, and then install the hub. See? All goes back together just fine. So I'll pull it off, get the bearings installed. Okay, we're going to heat this up so we can press the bearing race in, and we can get this completed back on the axle, and we can move to the back axle. We'll start by heating it up. Okay, we've got that hot, so it'll expand out. It'll be easier to slide this bearing race down in. Almost seated. There we go. All right, we've got that seated. We're gonna go ahead and let it cool off. Then we'll pack the bearings with grease and get it assembled. We have our bearing race pressed into the drum. Next thing we need to do is pack our wheel bearings. I've got some grease here. We'll get those packed, put our oil seal in, and then we'll move down to the car and install the brake drum. So to pack these, I'll just put a bunch of grease in my hand and just work it slowly into the bearing, trying to get as much into the bearing as I possibly can. Just keep squeezing it until it starts coming up between the bearing and the cage. We have our bearings packed. Next thing we'll do, put in our oil seal. Pre-lube that oil seal so it slips in. Square it up. Our oil seal is on. Slide the bearing into this side. All right, we'll take this and we'll install it on the spindle. Okay, we'll slide this right over the spindle, making sure that this oil seal slips right over this shoulder right here. We've got the preload set on the bearings about where I like it. There's no play in it, but it's not too tight that this won't spin. We have our dust cap installed. We'll get our flex line put on next. After that, that'll wrap up the front brakes. In the next episode, we'll work on the rear suspension and brakes. We have our front brakes all finished up. In the next episode, we'll be moving to the rear suspension and brakes. Once we get that wrapped up, we will move on to the engine. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.